everyone, this is Athena from Courage Coaching. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new to my channel, then please click on the subscribe button in order to receive notifications for any new videos that I upload. Now, in today's video, I wanted to revisit the topic of parentification. Now, what is parentification? Where do we see this? Now, when you imagine a family with parents and children, the parents are the ones that are supposed to give, and the children are the ones that are supposed to receive. So the parent is the one that needs to unconditionally love and take care of the physical needs and the emotional needs of their child. The children need to feel emotionally secure in the parent's presence, and their energy is focused on growing, on learning, and on maturing. And it's the parent's job to make sure that their child meets all the milestones that they need to meet and grows into a healthy adult. Now, what happens when the parent isn't able to give to their child, but instead they take from the child? This is what happens when a child is parentified. So if a parent has had emotional neglect or abuse in their own childhood and they live with a sense of emptiness, or they just don't feel that they are able to give to their children, they will sadly expect their child to cater to their own lacking emotional needs or physical needs, and they will put too much responsibility on the child's shoulders. This role reversal is very damaging for the young child, and the child will sometimes voluntarily take on too much responsibility, but it should be the parent's job to correct this behavior and tell the child that actually this isn't the child's job. It is the parent's job to do this for the child. But an unhealthy parent that hasn't had these needs met will not do this. They will allow the child to look after their emotional needs a lot of the time in a way that is destructive to the child's well-being. And the problem is that when a child is expected to support the parent emotionally or physically, or to look after the house or do the cooking, or the parent is constantly expecting the child to look after the younger sibling because the parent can't cope, maybe the parent is suffering from depression, anxiety, maybe they're struggling in their marriage, maybe their partner isn't meeting their emotional needs. So instead, they will turn to the child and they will expect the child to be there for them in a way that isn't healthy. They will expect their child to be a mini adult. They will expect the child to almost look after the parent like the child is the parent, which of course is very unhealthy because the child may be 10, 11 years old or even younger, right? And let's make sure that we don't confuse the fact that when a parent teaches the child responsibility by asking it to do some chores, by maybe doing the dishes sometimes or helping around the house sometimes, this is good because it teaches the child how to be responsible, and it gives them a feeling of self-worth, that they are able to do things, and it's a positive thing for the future. But the problem comes in when the parent expects the child to do things for the parent, for the home, for the other siblings all the time. If this is habitual, if this happens a lot, and it doesn't allow the child to be a child, if this takes away from the child's need to play, from the child's need to attend school events or do extracurricular activities, then this is when it becomes damaging. If the child is always worrying about the parent's needs, whether mum and dad are sad or happy, whether the younger sibling is not well, and they aren't actually going out there and being a kid, they're not actually going out there and having fun with their friends, then that is when it becomes a problem. Children are generally pretty resilient, right? And giving them a little bit of responsibility can very much help with a child's development. But making sure that this doesn't happen too much is very important, and there has to be boundaries in place, and the parent needs to know what is healthy and what isn't. So let's now talk a little bit about how and why children get parentified. Parentification can happen when a parent has a physical or emotional impairment, such as the following. Number 1, the parent may be living with mental illness. Number 2, the parent was neglected or abused as a child. Number 3, the parent may have an alcohol or substance use disorder. Number 4, the parent or a sibling may be disabled or have an underlying serious medical condition. Now, these are the 4 most important reasons that a parent will end up expecting their child to do more than they are supposed to. But sometimes life happens, things happen that didn't go as planned. So it may be that in a family unit, one parent suddenly dies, or it may be that the parents get a divorce and the parents are going through a really difficult time and they aren't able to give to the child in the way that the child needs because they are grieving, because they are really suffering. It may be that the parents are immigrants in a country and they are finding it really hard to integrate properly into society, or it might be that the family is really struggling financially, and because of these financial struggles, the parents are extremely stressed, and of course this has a knock-on effect on the children, and then the children suffer because they witness the parents being so stressed about money all the time. So then the child may feel the need to do something to support the parent, maybe when the child is a teenager or is actually able to work. So these are obviously things that can happen, right? And this isn't the fault of the parent, and it can be really difficult. But sometimes, the parent could maybe ask other family members to step in or friends to step in and help. There are always ways to deal with these difficulties. And sometimes communities can be really good with that, and they can really support somebody going through a hard time. Now, there are 2 different types of parentification. One is known as instrumental parentification, and the other is known as emotional parentification. Now, instrumental parentification happens when parents assign their children responsibilities that aren't age appropriate. And this could mean tasks such as grocery shopping, paying the bills, cooking meals, looking after an ill sibling. However, it is important to keep in mind that if a 10-year-old child is doing the dishes on occasion, this doesn't mean that the parent is engaging in instrumental parentification, right? You are just building your child's belief in their own abilities that are age appropriate, and this encourages the child to feel good about themselves because they are doing something that is helpful for the family, and also it teaches them skills, and when they grow up and become an adult, this will be very useful for them. Now, what is emotional parentification? Emotional parentification happens when a child fulfills a parent's emotional needs. The child is expected to figure out the emotional needs of the parent, needs to respond to that need and provide emotional support. Now, think about a child who cries because their parent forgot their birthday. Instead of trying to comfort the child, the parent rants about the stress that they are experiencing in their life, and this doesn't give them any room to think. The child, of course, will then respond by stifling their pain, by holding in their emotions, and trying to support and nurture the parent. But the parent should be the adult in this occasion, not allowing the child to take on the responsibility of parenting the parent. So a lot of parents are emotionally immature, and they aren't able to handle their emotions in a good way. They aren't able to emotionally regulate, so the child ends up taking on the responsibility of emotionally regulating the parent, of helping support the parent. And this, of course, is very unhealthy because the child has to put its own needs aside for the parent. But this is the role reversal that is really, really destructive. Children need to be able to feel what they feel. They need to be able to express their emotions in a healthy way. They also need to be their own unique person. The parent needs to allow them to be who they are, as unique as they are, as different as they are. Maybe they're not like the parent. Maybe they like doing things differently. The parent has to remember to honor that, to allow the child to be who they are, to give them space to be who they are, and to not dump their own problems, their own needs onto the child all the time. And eventually, when the child is a teenager, they will really struggle with having been parentified. They will struggle with connecting with their own feelings. They will learn to ignore their own feelings and always prioritize other people's feelings. They will become a people pleaser, and they will forget that they are important, that what they feel matters. They will develop feelings of stress and anxiety. They will feel constant over-responsibility. They may possibly have disruptive behavior, aggressive behavior, difficulty at school, social challenges with friends. They may also come across as overly grown up for their age. So they may only want to hang out with other grown-ups rather than with kids their own age. They may have physical symptoms, so they may have tummy aches or headaches, and they won't be able to understand why. When you essentially lose your childhood and you aren't allowed to be a child, you will end up having a lot of anger growing up. You will end up feeling like you have to numb your feelings because they were never allowed to be expressed when you were a child. Being parentified will also cause disruption in relationships and friendships because this child will end up choosing other individuals that need helping, that need fixing. So they may end up falling for somebody who's an addict or somebody who's mentally ill and constantly needs support. They will put their own needs aside to support this partner. They will forget that they are important and that they have needs too. They may end up having very one-sided friendships where they are the ones that are constantly giving to their friend and emotionally supporting their friend, but the friend isn't reciprocating this and isn't doing the same for them. So being parentified has a lot of very bad effects on the child, especially when they are an adult. Unfortunately, parentification leads to very insecure attachment, and this is when relationships are affected a lot, and the adult child suffers a lot in trying to form healthy relationships, balanced relationships, right? There has actually been research that says that the ongoing stress of parentification actually changes the brain, and it shrinks the hippocampus, the part of the brain that essentially regulates memory, emotion, and stress management. So the child will end up growing up and will be suffering a lot with what is known as CPTSD. So they will have a lot of difficulty with emotional regulation, with feeling shame, with having toxic relationships with others, with people pleasing. They will be triggered by people. They will find it very hard to prioritize their own needs in relationships. Now, if you can relate to the topic of this video, then please feel free to share your experience in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching and for listening today, everyone, and I will see you in my next video.